ever come across a political platform, and it
Hmm.
feels less like, you know, the usual vague promises, and more like someone's like insanely detailed to-do list.
Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of the deep dive we're on today, actually.
It's not every day you get a roadmap, a real roadmap from a political party,
Right.
especially one making waves all the way over in Israel. So
Exactly.
buckle up. We're covering some ground today.
We are, and this isn't just about some, distant election, right? You'll see echoes of these ideas like debated globally.
Oh, absolutely.
But this party, they decided, we're going to lay it all out.
Yeah,
Our vision, our plans, no stone unturned.
it's refreshing, actually.
It is. It is. It's like they're going for it.
Transparency.
Yeah.
The platform itself is fascinating, emphasizing personal freedom, while also, and this is interesting, while also working to strengthen Jewish identity
Like,
within a modern state. So two concepts that, on the surface you might think are at odds,
yeah.
which is exactly why we're digging in.
Makes sense to me.
Right.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump right into it, huh? One of the most, I don't know, radical
Mhm.
proposals in this whole thing centers around education.
Okay.
Specifically, like, who gets to call the shots?
Right.
They're talking about a massive, and I mean massive,
Yeah.
power shift from the
Yeah.
Ministry of Education directly to, wait for it, parents.
It's true. Imagine a system where your educational choices, they're not limited by, your zip code or whatever,
Right.
but by your family's actual needs and aspirations. Like, that's the kind of radical shift we're talking about. Instead of like everyone gets the same thing, it's more like, how do we tailor this
Okay.
to give parents more control,
Yeah, I read that part about basically handing a big chunk, like a significant chunk of the education budget directly to parents.
Yeah.
It's like a supercharged voucher system or something.
It is. It is.
But I don't know, what does that even look like practically?
Well, and this is what I mean by detailed. They get surprisingly granular. Like, we're talking thousands of shekels per month per child
Wow.
going directly to families.
Okay.
The idea is then you use that funding for whatever educational avenue you want. Public schools, private schools, you name it.
Wow. That's a bold move for sure. Makes you think about the implications, right?
Absolutely.
Both good and bad. Speaking of shaking things up, this platform, it also sets its sights on the Israeli Supreme Court.
Right. And this is where that emphasis on, individual freedom versus government overreach, it really comes into play.
Okay.
They are very critical, and they lay it out, of what they call judicial activism.
Which is?
Basically, they're saying the court's been making decisions based on, personal ideology rather than like a strict reading of the law.
So less reading between the lines, more like just the letter of the law?
Precisely.
Okay.
Their argument is this rebalances power. You give more weight to the decisions of, elected officials, not unelected judges.
Makes sense.
And in their view, that streamlines things, leads to a more efficient government, less roadblocks.
Interesting. It seems like that's kind of a recurring theme here. Shifting control closer to the individual,
You see it everywhere.
whether it's parents in education or, elected officials over judicial interpretation. It's like this common thread.
Yeah.
Now, let's pivot to something I think universally relevant, healthcare.
Yes. This is where it gets, I think, especially interesting, especially if you've been following, the global debates about healthcare models.
Right, which we all are.
Right, exactly.
So hit us with it.
These guys, they're advocating for a big move towards a more market-driven system.
Okay, so less reliance on the current universal health care and more emphasis on private sector involvement.
You got it.
Hmm.
They argue more competition. It does two things. One, improves the quality of care, and two, it actually, believe it or not, drives down costs.
Right.
They want to empower patients to be consumers.
Interesting.
Give them the control.
That's certainly a concept. Sparks a lot of debate, for sure.
Yeah, it does.
It's been done different ways, different places.
Right.
What's their main argument for that kind of shift?
So their thinking is a market-based approach. It forces innovation, right? And efficiency.
Makes sense.
If individuals control their healthcare spending, the system has to become more responsive to what they actually need.
That's one way to look at it, for sure. But it does make you wonder about, accessibility and affordability.
Right.
For everyone.
Sure.
It's not a perfect system, right?
Well, this system is.
This platform, I'll give them this, they do not shy away from these potentially controversial proposals.
Not at all.
Okay, transportation, something that affects us every single day.
This is interesting because they take what I think is an unexpected turn Remember that individual freedom thing?
Yeah.
Applies to transportation too, but not in the way you think. They are not about cars.
Really?
In fact, they're saying less cars.
In a world obsessed with cars.
That's right.
Wow. Okay, so what's the alternative? What are they thinking?
Think less about your own car, more about like really robust public transportation.
Okay.
They want to see big investments in public transit, cycling, pedestrian-friendly cities, the whole 9 yards.
Wow.
The goal is to reduce car dependency, period.
That's fascinating, especially considering, the global trend. It's all about urbanization.
Right.
More people, tighter spaces. It's like they're going the opposite direction.
They are.
Promoting a future where transportation is less about, my car and more about shared resources, sustainability, like all of that. Man, we covered some serious ground today, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Everything from completely flipping the script on education to rethinking healthcare to, ditching cars.
Yeah, so
That's like this platform is all about let's just rebuild the whole darn thing from scratch.
it's ambitious.
It is. So for you, after going through all this, what's the biggest takeaway? What's the thread that ties it all together?
For me, it keeps coming back to this idea of individual empowerment. It's a consistent theme, even across these totally different policy areas, right? Give parents control over education, emphasize individual choice in healthcare, even with transportation. It's all about giving that power back to the individual.
You're right. It's like they're saying, let's give people more say in literally shaping their lives and their communities. But here's the thing. How does that emphasis on individual freedom coexist with some of their other stances, like on Jewish identity or national defense? Those seem to lean towards a much stronger role for, the state.
It's one of those, I think, really thought-provoking contradictions you find here.
Yeah.
They want a smaller role for government in a lot of ways, but then when it comes to things like national identity or religion, it's like the approach shifts.
It's like they're trying to walk this tightrope, between individual liberties and this strong sense of collective identity.
It's a tough balance.
It is, but maybe that tension, I don't know, maybe it allows for something new to emerge. Okay, last thought. Something that really struck me going through this whole thing, the lack of focus. It's barely a blip on a pretty crucial area. You know what I'm talking about.
Let me guess, environment.
Bingo. Given everything happening with the climate and Israel's own unique environmental challenges, I was really surprised to see it, basically ignored.
Yeah, that's a significant omission for sure.
It is, and it makes you wonder, how would these policies, a lot of which seem to be about, economic growth, individual consumption, how do those things address resource management, sustainability, the long-term health of the environment, all of that?
Big questions.
Big questions, right? It's like they created this incredibly detailed roadmap, but they left out the part about, I don't know, navigating the biggest challenge of our time.
The context is definitely missing.
Right. It leaves us with more questions than answers,
Yeah.
How would a market-driven healthcare system impact, resource allocation for environmental stuff?
Yeah.
How do they plan to balance increased consumption with sustainable practices? Where's the connection?
Those are the things you have to grapple with, right? It shows that even the most well-thought-out plans, you can't ignore the bigger picture.
It's a good reminder that the choices we make, they have these ripple effects,
Yeah.
They go way beyond just us.
Absolutely.
Well, there you have it, a real deep dive into a political platform that's, I don't know about you, but I found it, anything but boring.
Yeah, definitely sparks some debate, challenged some assumptions.
We explored their vision, dug into the contradictions, uncovered some pretty big questions, and we barely scratched the surface, I think it's safe to say.
It's a good reminder, even in a world that's just flooded with information, there's always more to learn, more to question.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So
Mhm.
there you have it, folks, a deep dive into, a political platform unlike any we've seen before.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep those minds open, keep asking those tough questions, and most importantly, keep diving deeper. We'll see you next time.